I had my own band in London. It was called Griffin at the time, and we were playing a lot of London clubs. And John came in to see the band, so that's how I first got involved with it. It was basically he saw me. I didn't see him that night, but he called me the next morning and said, "I've got to do a show in Toronto, live piece in Toronto." The next day, he said, "I saw you play last night. I think you're really good, and you're just the person we need." And I guess he was kind of looking for somebody that was new, that just wanted a break, I think. And he seemed to kind of like me from the word to go kind of thing. And he called me up in my house in London. I didn't think it was him. I thought it was a friend of mine playing around with me. So I kind of put the phone down. I said, "No, no, no, stop messing around." I said, it's a crazy day." And then he called back 10 minutes later. He said, "No, no, no, really, this is John Lennon. Can you be at the airport tomorrow? And by the way, Eric Clapton's in the band, and Klaus Voormann, and Yoko and myself, and we've got to do a show in Toronto, Canada." So he said, "I'll send a limo if you want to do it." I said, "Sure." And he sent a limo for me, and next thing I know, I was in the VIP lounge at Heathrow, sitting with them, kind of thinking. I was only 20 years old, so I was kind of like in awe, but thinking, I guess this is what happens when you make it in the record industry, kind of thing. And we rehearsed on the airplane on the way to Toronto, and basically did the show right after we got there. Got straight off the plane, drove to the show, went straight on stage, met a few people like Little Richard and Gene Vincent, and it was just like it was all going by so quickly that I hardly really remember what happened. It was just like a blur, and then years later you think, "Wow, did I really do all that stuff?" So, well, it was really the first time I met him, but yeah, it was the kind of thing where it developed after that because he kept me around, part of his kind of stable. It was imitated to a degree, but I think I was so young, I kind of took it within my stride, and I think that maybe what he liked about it, he said, "Well, this guy's only 20, but he's handling all of this kind of pressure because there was press everywhere." It was the first show he'd done after he left the Beatles, and Eric was really good too. He said, "No, no, no, you'll be all right. Just follow me, and I'll show you the ropes," kind of thing. And Klaus was great too, So they're all really nice people to be around, and just like the guys next door. A lot of fun. Yeah, I've been listening to the Beatles since I was like began really basically since I was 11, 12 years old. So no, I was just the talent was incredible that they had, and so it was a kind of thing that just led me on. All of a sudden, there I was on stage playing with them. So it was pretty incredible. Well, the rehearsal was on the plane. We actually He said, "Don't worry, we're going to do all these standard kind of songs, and I've got a list here." And John and Eric had acoustic guitars, and they had a pair of drumsticks that weren't even mine, that were the wrong size. So, and I was playing on the back of the. It happened to be not full, the plane, because we were sitting in first class, but the back of the plane was empty. So they just grabbed the guitars. We went down the back of the plane, and I was playing on the seat, and John said, "No, we'll do the Carl Perkins version of this. It's got an extra beat in it. That's all you got to remember." And then, it just all came together on the plane there. And all of a sudden, I was on stage on a drum kit I'd never played before, with all these people and Yoko lying in a bag on stage in front of me. And I'm going, "Whoa, this is way over my head." So I was kind of like intimidated and a little bit naive to the whole situation, but it seemed to go off kind of well. And everybody seemed happy about it. And, you know, it was very funny because John got really sick before the stage. He was so nervous he started throwing up. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he was in the corner kind of throwing up because he was really nervous doing the first show since he was in the Beatles by himself. So, but once you got on stage, everything seemed to be fine. Yeah, I really, yeah, I know. I never really seen that before, but obviously he did. He was like when he gets in front of the public, he kind of freezes up a little bit, but once he's kind of happening, it takes over and he's out there. But you're singing great. I mean, he's just it's just amazing to kind of like be sitting there playing and hearing his voice and playing along with it, you know, on the monitors. So it was incredible. Oh, it was like sensational. It was just, I think it was 25,000 people there. And it was downtown Toronto in this kind of semi-stadium park, like a small little stadium kind of thing. I don't know what they actually played there, actually, but they had a stage set up and it was jam-packed and they received everything really well because, you know, obviously with him, it was like, and obviously the first time since he'd been with the Beatles on stage again. So it's pretty incredible. I know there's a lot of people that kept coming into this, you know, obviously from that led up to me playing on Instant Karma and stuff, and Imagine, but it was a little bit transitory like that, where you know it was like whoever was around. That's his whole thing was if you're around at the time, you're in the Plastic Ono band, kind of thing. But he always called me to be at the drums. He just called and say, "Oh, we're doing something else, and I need to be here at this time if you can do that." And that was the way it was. Yes, it was done in. It was all done the same day. We started. I think we started in the afternoon sometime. And John had this song. Called me in the morning. Said, "Can you come to the studio?" Ended up going to the studio. We had the kit set up, and said, "Oh no, I've got this song." And he said, "I really want to get this done. It's been in my head for. It was like driving him crazy. He really wanted to put it on record." And we recorded in. Phil Spector was in behind the board, and basically we got in there, and I only think we ever took it like 4 or 5 times, and but I kept at that time in my life I was experimenting because I with my own band I'd been experimenting with doing kind of like playing drums a regular rhythm, but when you come to kind of drum breaks, you change the meter of the drum breaks, so it sounds like you step sideways for a little while and then go back to the song. So we were playing this in Karma and used the tom tom as like a cymbal. So it was like a shuffle, but playing tom toms like a cymbal. And we put a cloth, a towel over it, so it was muffled. So it was like boom, boom, boom. It was really tight sounding like that. And then when it came to the drum breaks, I'd step out and change the meter of the drum break a little bit to the side. And John said, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." He said, "That's perfect." And he never really told me to do anything. I was just like messing around, experimenting with the drum breaks. He said, "No, do that every time it comes to this part of the song." And then we got the backing track, and then we needed to put piano on it. And we overdubbed the piano, and 4 of us played the piano at the same time because Phil Spector, being Phil Spector, wanted 15 tambourines and 4 pianos all playing the same thing, and then they make one sound out of it. So John and myself were on one piano playing dang, 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 all that stuff, and then Klaus and I think it was Gary Wright. He was on the other piano, and all 4 of us played on 2 upright pianos, just banging away all the way through the song. And that's what you hear. But then once we had that, it was getting into the evening a little bit, so we were layering everything up, getting it all kind of down there. And John all of a sudden said, he said, we need more voices on this. And we said, well, we can all sing, but we know we don't have enough tracks to double track kind of, we all shine on like the stars in the sun. So he wanted like a huge thing, and it was getting late, and it was that time at night. So he sent Mel Evans to, who was the Beatles' main roadie, Mel Evans, a really great guy, like a cuddly teddy bear. He went off, he said, I've got an idea, and he went to, I think it was the Revolution Club in London. And the club was kind of starting to close by the time he got things down there. And he rounded all these people up from the club, and he invited them all back to the studio. And they were all pretty, I think, half cut by the time they left. So they all these people started traipsing through the door, and I'm looking at them going, this is not going to be easy to get them all singing chime and in tune, because, you know, they'd been drinking all night. Anyhow, John and myself and Klaus, we all stood at the front conducting like this, and giving big signs saying, this is what you have to sing. And we managed to actually get them all singing in tune. So that's what you actually listen to on the record. So it was a pretty interesting evening. Well, I knew him through the Shirelles and all that kind of stuff he did prior to that. And he was very famous for like using lots of echo and recording things, like huge amounts of them, and then piling them all on top of each other in the studio and bouncing them with each other and getting this kind of huge big sound. So that's about as much as I kind of knew about him before I started working with him. It was always kind of a really weird kind of character, never really said much, but, you know, you walk in there and he had something sounding like totally different from what it sounded like in the studio. So I guess that's part of being a good producer. Neither him, Phil Spector, or John ever told me what to play. I'll just sit down there and I think, well, they're going to want me to do this. You know, what? And they said, no, whatever you're doing, keep playing it. It's perfect. That's all he ever said to me. And so I just kept doing what I was doing. It seemed to fit with what was going on. And, you know, it was just a little bit like I had free reign to do anything I want, but it just happened. It got me used to when I work in a studio never to kind of overplay, whereby you put something in a song that the song doesn't need. So it got me used to kind of like just putting in what is necessary to make the song work. And I guess that's what I learned at a very early age. As far as professionalism goes within John, he was always the guy. You see, when you walked into a room with any of the Beatles, which I did as well with George and him, but you know, you walk in the room with one Beatle, and the room seems to revolve around that Beatle, and so he had to be kind of Mr. Professional, and everything he did really, everybody's eyes were focused on it. So I think he was very careful about how good it was all the time, and he was very, very serious about getting things right. Yeah, and it was just an aura that surrounded each of the Beatles. And when you're in a room with two of them together, and then three of them together, it's like the whole room kind of revolves around all those people, and it's pretty eerie sensation. But once you're accepted into the family, as it were. It was kind of like a family, and I became kind of part of the family. When I turned up, they said, "All say hi," but they were just like normal guys, and they treat you like a normal guy, and you were part of their inner sanctum, as it were, where it was just fun. You know, they like to have fun, and it was the people outside them that made them into that huge kind of aura that surrounds them. It was just floating around all the time, and they really were like a bunch of schoolboys. They used to play around and act around and have a lot of fun. They had to make it fun. If it became too serious, it would have been way out of control. when we did get to doing Imagine, before we actually recorded Imagine, he gave us a lyric sheet for all the songs and said, "This is what you're going to be saying to the whole world by playing on this." He said, I want everybody who's going to play on it to go take half an hour, go read all the lyrics, and tell me if you want to play on it or not." Because I guess it wasn't so much the political side of it, but I guess it was reverting to the Paul McCartney "How Do You Sleep at Night," which I played on. So I guess he wanted people to work those lyrics because he didn't want them to kind of get sued by Paul for something bad he'd said, kind of thing. So I think that was one of the angles why he was doing that. But no, I said it's absolutely fine. It's great. I mean, if you listen to some of those lyrics from those albums, they're so current today with what's going on in the world. It's like, you know, he was kind of way ahead of his time making a statement there. So, but yeah, it gave you a sense of being behind the kind of movement that he was had very strong thoughts about it, and he had a great way of telling the public by his music. I imagine. Jealous Guy. I played. I didn't play drums, and I played vibraphone. That's kind of a funny story because Jim Keltner played the drums, and he's a great guy. I love Jim. He was at the studio that day, so Jim played drums. So I was there. I said, well, because I play keyboards as well. So, and I said, well, but they had a keyboard player too. So I said, well, you know, it's fine. I said, I'll just sit. He said, no, 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 we need something else here. So I actually had been doing another thing. I had a set of vibraphones in my car, and he said, bring him in. We'll put him up. What a great idea! And the studio that Imagine was actually made in was only maybe, I would say it was like 20 foot by 25 foot, and everybody was crammed into the small room. That's where it was made, and plus there was an upright in the corner. There wasn't really a place to put all the instruments, so right in the corner of the bathroom there's a door, and there's a bathroom in the actual studio. So we opened the door, and I put the vibraphones inside the bathroom, and it was like a natural echo chamber. So they put the mics in there and left a crack in the door about 4 inches wide so I could see John and the band, and that's how we recorded Jealous Guy. And Imagine, of course, was you know, the song on the album that's probably played forever, and that's had such a lot to say as far as like the way the world should change. And you know, like I say, it's very current. If you play that song, unless there's the lyrics of what's going on nowadays, it's like he was way ahead of his time. And song was done. I believe we only did like 3 takes of that song, and I believe they used the second one. And then John sang it live too, but I think he redid the vocals later. He redid the vocals later because they put strings on it and stuff like that. But you know, it was done in no time. And you know, the thing about Imagine when we recorded that is everybody knew that that was the right take. It was like, it was pretty obvious that everything went right, and it was just a sense of a feeling in the studio that was really, really a cool version of the song. So it was kind of eerie kind of feeling. I think they were all just really good friends around the Imagine time. I remember the day John came down. He was so happy with what Phil was doing with his album. He said, "Here, take these," and it was the keys to his Rolls Royce outside. And he gave him his white Rolls. He said, "No, you're doing a really good job." It was the one that was painted with flowers and all that stuff, right? So Phil said, "Why?" He said, "No, I want you to have it." He said, "You're doing a great job in here." And I was like, "Wow, you got any more of those lying around?" I'll take one. Uh, Funny, but you know, I never saw any bickering. Actually, if you go to the making of Imagine, there's a movie thing, a documentary of some kind. And when we first started doing Imagine, the everybody started playing at the very beginning of the song. And I thought, well, I just had this thing in my mind thinking, John sings and plays this so well. Like, why doesn't he do the first verse just by himself? So in the movie, it's got me sitting on the console in the studio. John sat here and Phil Spector, and I said, you know, John, I said, you might want to try thinking about doing the first verse by yourself. And then he looks at Phil and he goes, you know, you might have something there. And that's how the arrangement changed, because I happened to mention that we shouldn't come in until the next part, kind of thing. So, oh, I get part of the crediting for arranging it. Not that I ever saw it, right? I don't know. I think everybody was allowed to just have input and say whatever they wanted at any time. You know, John he was pretty strong-minded in the way that he pretty much had it in his head how he wanted it to sound. And sometimes he'd search for kind of clues to where it should go, but most of the time it was really all his brainchild. And, you know, everybody just agreed with him about everything because it sounded right. And that was just one thing I chirped up and said one. I said, why don't you think about starting it by yourself? He liked the idea, and that's what he did. So they kept it. My thoughts, they were really madly in love at that time. I mean, they were